Man, I cannot believe the shit we just saw in this episode. You know, we kind of knew what was coming, but even I wasn't ready for some of the brain dead dog shit we saw in this episode. I keep using the word mindless. I don't want to be redundant, but it's the perfect word to describe this season. It's mindless nonsense. And I've been waiting for this show to present some kind of message, something that leaves you with something thought-provoking. And I think they might have finally done it. But unfortunately, the message is diminutive, misguided, empty-headed, one-note bullshit. But of course, we'll get to that when we get to that. There's also a lot of nostalgia, obviously, from top to bottom, nothing but nostalgia, absolutely nothing else. I don't know where your line is for where you will feel pandered, as though you're a little baby. But if you haven't reached it by this point, it's never going to happen. My line was crossed like 6 episodes ago. It's been lapped several times since. There's so much to get into this with this one, which sucks because it's not a long episode. So I thought maybe I would be able to keep this nice and tight. But they crammed in a lot of drivel in a short amount of time. So there's a lot to cover. So let's just dive right into this fucking sewage. The episode opens up where the last one ended, kind of. It's another cop-out. The last episode ended with Jack's mysterious red door being opened with the help of Troy. Her hand touches the knob, it turns, and the episode ends. And this episode starts with nearly 5 minutes more of trepidation about opening the fucking door. I feel like Annie Wilkes over here, complaining about how he didn't get out of the cock-a-doodle car. She already opened the cock-a-doodle door. So after continuing this dogshit padding for a few more minutes, the door is finally opened, and the vision is broken before we can see what it was. And Troy freaks out a bit. She won't say what she saw, of course, because we got to try to keep this worst-kept secret a secret for a few more seconds. She leaves the room, and Jack is screaming at her, trying to find out what she saw. The door closes behind him, or in front of him, and I guess he can't leave. We find out later he's not able to leave because there's a guards on his door, but he should be able to leave now. There's no reason to have guards on his door now. And Troy goes to Picard and says she saw the Borg. So, big fucking surprise. We knew it was going to be something from the past. And early on in the season, I said that season 2 blew their chance to use the Borg for this season. Well, I was wrong. And I kind of knew I was going to be wrong the minute that Shaw said that line about the real Borg still being out there. They've been drip feeding us Borg hints since the very first episode of episode 1. Or the very first episode of the season, I should say. The changelings were just a nostalgia-filled red herring for the real nostalgia-filled bad guys, the Borg. And it turns out that Jack is organically and wordlessly connected to the Borg. Picard never actually had Irumodic syndrome. His symptoms were caused by his assimilation by the Borg. We eventually find out from Geordi that all Borg undergo genetic alterations. New genetic code was stored in Picard's old body. And I can't fucking believe that this was never detected by Crusher or any other medical doctor through routine checkups. But okay. This is apparently why Picard could still hear the collective even after being removed from it. I can't believe they felt the need to explain this. As far as I know, every ex-Borg can still hear the collective if they're close enough. Because every ex-Borg still has implants that can't be removed, just like 7 of 9. And speaking of 7 of 9, it's fucking mind-numbing that she has absolutely nothing to say about this Borg revelation. No input whatsoever. She's not even in the fucking room at any point when they're discussing it. It's incredible. So Picard tells Jack about what happened to him with the Borg, his misdiagnosed Irumodic syndrome, the whole 9 yards. And he apparently passed this link with the Borg onto Jack. I don't have as many complaints about this as you might think. It seems somewhat plausible if the Borg actually did rewrite Picard's DNA in some way. What's not plausible is that it went undetected. But it does seem like something that could have happened to him during an extreme, violation of his body. It seems possible. My real issue is more to do with how they were going to use this to their advantage. Because a lot of random things needed to happen for any of this to work. How did they know Picard was going to have a son? For instance. I mean, it's just a mess. But whatever. Jack says, I've always known the world was imperfect. Broken systems, wars, suffering, poverty, bigotry. He says, if only people could speak in one mind as a collective, things might be better. So he defends Borg philosophy. So that's nice. His little speech reminded me of Season 2 in a lot of ways. Season 2 is like the Borg apologist season. And in any case, he gets frustrated and tries to leave. But there are guards outside of his door. So he uses his mind control powers to take control of them. And he walks out. He tells his mother that he's going home. He seems to have some dumb-ass, ham-fisted, overly simplistic plan to kill the Borg Queen. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to show up with another thermal detonator that's not a thermal detonator? Dude is a one-trick pony. And he's going off half-cocked. Never go off half-cocked. Anything worth doing is worth doing full-cocked. You know what I'm saying? Even I don't know what the fuck I'm saying. Moving on. So Jack leaves with 0 resistance. They basically just let him go. He takes a shuttle and he's gone. I mean, what the fuck? He literally is doing Vadic's job for her. This is exactly what she was hired to do, right? Take Jack to the fucking Borg Queen. That's what we found out in this episode. And they just let him go. They don't say anything. And don't say they had no choice. Because I'm pretty sure they could have locked him out of the shuttle bay or tractored him in if he did manage to take one of the shuttles. I mean, he can't take control over the entire crew. He certainly can't take control of Data. So it just makes no sense that they just let him leave. And Data says they weren't able to track the shuttle. How fucking hard were you trying? Seems ridiculous that Starfleet ships can't track their own shuttles. And all of Starfleet is gathered in one location for Frontier Day, which is absolutely ridiculous. Who is patrolling the neutral zone? Who is delivering aid to Federation planets? Who's keeping them safe? I mean, it's fucking brain dead. But okay, all of Starfleet is at Earth for this, and quippy Captain Shaw agrees to take them there. And at Earth, Admiral Shelby is in command of the Enterprise F. And the F must stand for fucked, because the special effects in this scene are like something out of Star Trek Online. It's great to see Shelby again, though. I'm sure she's here for a good reason, and they won't do a disservice to her character in any way. She talks about how Starfleet ships operate as one now. They're all linked, and for the life of me, I can't figure out what the advantage is to this. It has not been explained, as far as I'm aware. It seems like an incredibly stupid security risk. And it's only done to create a flaw that the Borg can easily exploit. That's the only reason it exists in the show. That's it. And of course, because the audience is deemed too stupid to realize this on their own, Picard has to point out the irony of Shelby endorsing something that is so Borg-like. But even the Borg aren't this stupid. You can't exploit the entire Borg collective by taking control over one cube. They're not that dumb. But Starfleet is that dumb. And Meanwhile, Jack finds a Borg transwarp conduit and ends up in Borg space, which is pretty insane. I would think it would have taken him hours, if not days, to reach a Borg transwarp conduit. Remember, he's in a shuttlecraft. But I guess there was one just right around the corner, which is awful convenient. He finds a cube. He beams aboard with a phaser. Yeah, I'm sure that will work. He finds the Borg Queen. We don't actually see her. We don't see her face, I should say. But she seems to be written like another mustache-twirling villain. I never thought of the Borg Queen as a flawless villain, but she always had more nuance than this shit. I mean, it's ridiculous. And Jack lets out a goofy scream because he can't shoot. And he gets assimilated. I mean, what a fucking moron. What did he think was going to happen? And don't say he was lured there by the Borg Queen and that he had no choice. If she had that kind of hold on him, she wouldn't have needed Vadic and the Changelings to deliver him. And here's a question. If this was all part of a Master Borg plan, why would the Borg Queen want Picard to rejoin the collective in Star Trek First Contact? Why would she have even bothered to invade the Federation? How did she know that there would be rogue changelings that she could recruit to her cause? You see how convoluted and ridiculous this is? I don't mean to be condescending, but it really makes no fucking sense. Doesn't hold up to any scrutiny at all. And kind of randomly, because the writers demand that now is the time, Data and Geordi discover that Picard's Borg-altered DNA is linked to the Starfleet transporter system. Picard's DNA is considered common biology. So basically every person that has used the Starfleet transporter now has Picard's altered DNA. And this is how Jack can control them. They've basically been assimilated organically without even knowing it. And I feel like I have to laugh because how fucking stupid is this? We don't know exactly how transporters work in Star Trek, but I have my own headcanon, and this contradicts it greatly, which is not necessarily a flaw in the show, I admit, but it's just an annoyance for me. Although I do think it's pretty ridiculous that they do this. I mean, how is this not detectable? Just went unnoticed for years. So the Titan shows up at the Sol system and is locked down. Picard hails Shelby, but the comms go down. Seven gets hit with a Borg signal. I guess the show remembered that she was a Borg too at one point, so that's nice. And everyone under the age of 25 starts getting assimilated. Data says that Borg genetic material doesn't propagate in species past a certain point in their development cycle. And for humans, that's 25 years old, although it seems to be the same exact thing for aliens as well, because they're all getting assimilated. Every young person on the ship is assimilated. So basically, everyone but the main characters are becoming Borg. That's basically what's happening right now. And apparently, everyone on the fucking Titan is under 25. Except for Shaw, Riker, Picard, Seven, Raffi, Worf, Geordi, Troy, and Beverly. Even the LaForge sisters are assimilated. And it seems like Shelby gets killed violently. It's pretty brutal. She's shot multiple times before the feed cuts out. What we saw with her was nothing short of character assassination, literally and figuratively. She went from a practical, ambitious officer who was deemed intelligent enough to almost single-handedly come up with ways to fight the Borg, to this complacent moron who links all Starfleet ships together for no fucking reason and then gets killed without even putting up so much as a fight. It's just so bad. And there's a firefight to the shuttles. They seem to have found one that has no guards around it, which is nice. And somehow the shuttles are not linked to this system that controls all the Starfleet ships. So, I mean, that is just wildly convenient that they're just able to use shuttles to escape. But okay. And Shaw gets shot. And he dies. Now, you know how I feel about Captain Shaw. But I'm not going to celebrate. I'm not going to be petty. I'm not going to be happy that he's gone. I would never do that. And I'm certainly not going to say that I'm glad that he's dead.
I'm glad you did.
But seriously, what a shitty character. Just top to bottom, a judgmental, condescending, quippy douchebag who thinks his traumatic experience 30 years ago gives him the right to condemn anyone he pleases. And with his dying breath, he finally calls Seven by her preferred name. So that's nice. It took him dying to actually do something that no one else had a problem doing. And don't say this guy has an arc. I mean, we thought he might be forced to confront the Borg again, and he does, but you never see him deal with it or struggle with it or have a moment of PTSD, and you might argue, well, he's the captain. He should be able to pull himself together in those situations. Granted, I totally agree. But he also should be able to pull himself together when he feels like ranting and raving and erroneously blaming someone for something that happened 30 years ago. He's just a character that I think represents the worst aspects of the fan base. He's a fan in a lot of ways. At least in my experience, his biggest defenders are the biggest assholes. And the amount of people that compare him to Captain Jellicoe is just crazy to me. Jellicoe was this ultra serious dude, but he was never really rude to anyone around him. And people say he's by the book. Jellicoe is not by the book. He has a Cardassian dude wait in the briefing room for over an hour just to piss him off. That's not by the book. The comparison is just ridiculous to me. But anyway, rest in peace, Captain Shaw. You were a piece of shit, barely competent as a captain, and you took way more orders than you gave. And I'm sure every social nitwit in this fan base is weeping for you right now. Anyway, where were we? Oh, right. Seven and Raffi are staying behind on the Titan for some reason. I mean, good fucking luck. I don't know how they're going to live, but I guess they are, because they got main character powers, despite the fact that they have been almost glorified extras in the second half of this season. And the Next Generation cast make their way to the shuttle, and they go to the Fleet Museum. You could see this coming a mile away, because they need a ship that isn't unified with the rest of the fleet. So what classic relic are they going to take? What bit of nostalgia are we going to exploit here? Well, of course, why not make it the Enterprise D? Naturally. Geordi says he spent the last 20 years restoring it, as though he's Tom Paris working on his fucking holodeck Camaro. I mean, it's ridiculous. Geordi restored a whole fucking Enterprise by himself in his spare time. Amazing. It's also implied that Worf somehow destroyed the Enterprise E, much to the dismay of fans of that ship, I'm sure. So they walk onto the bridge, and it's kind of amazing to see a Star Trek bridge with actual fucking lights. So this fucking excuse that people have about it being more cinematic in the dark has gone out the window now, hasn't it? Because they're going to spend the remainder of this season on a well-lit ship. So obviously it's not necessary. And of course, this week's nostalgia circle jerk comes to a close when Picard takes the Enterprise out of space dock and he says, engage. They're apparently going to run this entire ship with 7 fucking people. A crew of 1,000 was once needed to run it. But now they only need the main crew. And what's the plan? They're just going to head back to Earth, fight the Borg-controlled Starfleet ships all on their own, naturally. Holy shit. I mean, it makes all the sense in the world, doesn't it? I mean, what else would you do? Just absolutely brain dead. Absolutely fucking brain dead. And the fact that they head out almost triumphantly, as though they wouldn't be heading to certain doom, is just laughable. Everyone over the age of 25 in Starfleet is dead. Everyone under the age of 25 is a Borg drone. There is no happy ending to be had here. It's over, Johnny. I'm sure they will come up with one that will be very ham-fisted, but there's no way to unfuck this situation in a believable and satisfying way. There's no way. They're going to have to use magic. And the changelings, Jesus, they were a total red herring, weren't they? Just a pointless enemy that, in the blink of a fucking eye, has been traded for the Borg. If this was the first episode you saw this season, you would not even know the changelings were a factor. And as for the message I mentioned earlier, like I said, it's not much of a message, but it seems to be saying that young people are easily brainwashed into collective mob thinking, and that older generations need to save them from themselves. That's basically the gist of what they're saying. And I appreciate that older characters have more to do this season, and they're not just relegated to, being trash talked by everyone around them. But does this show really want to suggest that young people are part of the problem? That feels like such an old man yelling at the cloud thing. And as someone who has been often accused of being the old man yelling at the cloud when I talk about new Star Trek, I know how that feels. But now the show itself is the old man yelling at the cloud. It's divisive nonsense to paint one group of people as the problem. It doesn't make sense to me. Just feels like an old asshole's view of the world. And don't say I'm reading too much into it, because it's Star Trek. You're supposed to read into it. Star Trek is supposed to make you think. You're supposed to read between the fucking lines. So if I'm not supposed to be doing that, then how is this good Star Trek? Just terrible. Worse than I could have even imagined, because I always thought that no matter what happens, this season would, at the very least, turn out to be better than season 1 and season 2. Certainly season 2. But now I'm not so sure. I mean, season 1 is bad. It's really bad. It's a mess. But at least there are some ideas in it. It doesn't explore them properly or do anything with them really, but at least it's trying something new. And maybe it's too soon to say. There's still one episode left, so I guess we'll have to see. And I also wonder if the Jurati gang of Borg is going to show up at some point to help. I feel like that will be dumb if they do that, and it'll be dumb if they don't. They're fucked either way. Because it's cringe to have Jurati show up again. But it will also feel dumb if they don't show up. Because where are they? Why wouldn't they help? So it's just a mess either way. Anyway, let me know what you thought of this one. I asked that like I don't pretty much know. I mean, most people who watch these videos are on or at least close to being on the same page as me, for the most part. But if you do feel differently, let me know. Politely, please, because, there's no reason to get rude. Just because I'm criticizing your favorite show doesn't mean that I'm criticizing you. There's no reason to take it personally. I can't believe that has to be explained, but I assure you, it does. But anyway, next week is the finale, obviously, and for that one, I'm going to give the whole season a rating on the Space Rock scale, so that should be fun. So keep an eye out for that. And I apologize for the length of these videos. I don't know what happens. I can't keep it under 20 minutes anymore. There's just too much shit to complain about. Jesus. Anyway, that's all I got for now. Until next time, take it easy.